Good afternoon, and welcome to the Sunshine Coast Regional District Board meeting of January 27th. And I'd like to acknowledge that we are within the territory of the Shisheth Nation. We have an amended agenda in front of us. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Ms. Perot.
Yes, thank you. An item arose out of the earlier CAS meeting to look at the general government 2021 surplus to for 2022 taxation reduction potential.
Yes.
I have some information on that if you like.
Okay, where would you like to put that into our package? Corporate officer, where would you suggest we put that?
We can add that as an item of new business. Apologies.
All right, item of new business, okay. So this is, what would you like, anything particular you'd like to call it? CFO report? And then you could come up with a title or something somewhere down the road?
That would work.
And that would be regarding operational reserve or operational surplus? Just so I remember when we get there that what we're talking about. All right, any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, I'd look for a motion to adopt the amended agenda. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. First up is regular board meeting minutes of January 13th, Annex A, pages 1 through 31. Let's look for a motion to receive all the reports, presentation reports, the minutes, and the correspondence. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. All right, so now let's move to the minutes of the meeting. Are there any errors or omissions in these minutes? Seeing none, I'd look for a motion to adopt the minutes as presented. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes or unfinished business? Sorry, and I'm just going to get to the right page in my online agenda. All right, hang on, let me just make sure I see my participants. Seeing no business arising from the minutes, we'll move on to Annex B. This is a correction to the December 9th, 2021 board minutes, and I'll turn to our corporate officer.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is coming forward just as a correction. Some of the infrastructure services recommendations were misnumbered in a previous meeting. So the two recommendations within the report are coming forward to ensure the board considers them for adoption.
Any questions by directors? Seeing none, there are some recommendations on page 32. I'd like to directors. Someone like to move the recommendations? Moved by Director Hiltz. Is there a seconder? Seconded? All right. Seeing no further questions or comments, all those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item number 4. These are Infrastructure Services Committee meeting minutes from January 13th, 2022. Recommendations numbers 1 through 6 and 9 previously adopted. Of the other recommendations, are there any that directors would like to see pulled for separate consideration? Seeing none, I would look for a recommendation to adopt recommendations number 7 and 8 in this package. Moved by Director Toth, seconded by Director McMahon. All those in favor? Thank you. Then we move to item 4A. This is the Special Corporate and Administrative Services Committee recommendations from Round 2 budget, numbers 1 through 25 of January 24th, 2022, pages 39A through H. Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to pull recommendations 3, 5, and 14 to vote on separately.
Okay, any others from any other directors? So I would look for a motion to adopt recommendations 1, 2, 4, 6 through 13, and 15 through 25. Moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. And Director Toth, did you want to speak to number 3?
No, I think I had said everything that needed to be said along the way. I don't have the notes in front of me specifically. Oh, recommendation 3. I think Director Beamish had mentioned that it would have been nice to have had those broken up into separate recommendations, but I'm just going to vote against it for the emergency planning deficit. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, look for someone to move recommendation 3 in the package. Moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? Director Beamish, McMahon, and Toth. Would you like that recorded? Toth would like it recorded. Beamish would like it recorded as well. Thank you.
Sorry, I wasn't opposed. I was just slow off the draw here.
Okay, sorry.
Without delays on the Zoom.
All right. Recommendation number 5. This is general governance. This is with regards to the executive assistant. Look for someone to move recommendation 5. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? And any opposed? Director Toth, Director Lee, would you like that recorded? Yes? Director Lee, did you want yours recorded? No. Okay, just Director Toth recorded. Recommendation number 14. Recommendation 14 is regional solid waste. This is for the gypsum testing and abatement. Look for someone to move recommendation 14, sorry. Moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? And any opposed? Director Toth and Beamish, recorded? Yes, please. Thank you. That's item 4A. Item 4B are the 2 recommendations from the Corporate Administrative Services Committee meeting this morning, numbers 1 and 2. This is page 39I. I'd look for someone to move the recommendations. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? All right, seeing none opposed. Moving on to item number 5. This is report number 5, Annex D, pages 40 through 42, back in our original agenda package. And this is with regard to Sunshine Coast Arena spring ice. And we are going to have, I don't know who's going to lead this one off. Ms. Gagnon, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The report before you is really for information purposes only. We do have administrative procedure that is also supported by board resolution around when we offer spring ice and when we don't. And so the board is, or the report before you is for information purposes in that we will not be offering spring ice the way it stands today. But both Manager Don and I are here to answer any questions that you might have in regards to the report or the process itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Directors, any questions or comments? Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. I know I've heard the answer to this before, but I don't recall. When you're looking at the incremental costs, is it an all or nothing proposition? Like in this case, they're looking for 8 weeks and it's not covered. So does that mean 0 weeks, or is there 2 or 3 weeks of extension that they will be getting?
Manager Don, do you want to address that question? Is he there?
Yes, thank you, GM Gagnon. So we do have the option to have a shorter spring ice season should specific requests come in. We've had some interest for specifically April that might outweigh the May timeframe as well, but we really do need some more ice rentals regardless of where we're at right now. Thanks.
Director Beamish?
Given the economies of scale and the fact that our communities do seem to be growing, what is the tipping point that would see us have a more rigorous programming for the different ice users? What needs to be done in terms of either population or use, like more rentals and things of that nature, so that it can be a target to work towards, or we can say, maybe 3 years from now it'll be a different situation. Is there something we can project out in the future on this?
I'll perhaps give it a shot, and then if Manager Don has anything he wants to add. It's a good question. When I look at some documentation that we have in terms of our master plans or some of the previous reports that have presented to the board, the dilemma is certainly in terms of our demographic. We tend to have an older population, and so that drives sort of the recreation interests of the region. The growth of the clubs themselves, the growth of the sports themselves, the trends in sport, costs, those all are going to contribute to the sustainability of the sport, and then the need and the use of the facility itself. In this case of spring ice, it's always a challenge in smaller populations, in my experience, until you get to a certain threshold of people and users and the sport groups and the size of those sport groups. It's an economy of scale in terms of how many people and how much ice you have. Here, the part of the challenge is you really need more adult use of the ice and more tournament use. And I think we're caught as well in a COVID challenge where tournaments aren't permitted right now, and people are a little bit reluctant to take the risk of planning and then have it canceled. And so it's a challenging time as well. I know we have offered spring ice in the past, and sometimes we just haven't been able to get there. And staff work with the user groups to do what we can to get us as close as we can. Maybe some sponsorship or other creative ways for groups to look at meeting that gap might be out there, but this time at this year, we're a ways from being close, unfortunately.
Thanks for that explanation. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Director Hilt?
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick question on the incremental cost, last updated in 2019. So is this, when would be the next update of that figure, of that per weekly cost? Is that in a work plan, or when is that done?
Thank you for the question, Director Hiltz. It's not in our work plan. It is something that could be done. I could pretty much tell you that if we were to do it today, we'd be using data from 2019, because 2020 and 2021 were irregular seasons and COVID, and it's not great information. But I could tell you just anecdotally, costs have not gone down. If anything, cost of living and, we know our utility rates and such are going up. So it's not something that we have in our plan to do, I think, until we get back to a more regular type of season. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from directors? I think we heard today or yesterday that tournaments are potentially opening up on Tuesday for young people, not yet for adults, but that's today. As we've seen through the last 2 years, plans change continually, and it is difficult for those who are looking to put on tournaments to even commit, because there are costs and stuff as well. Director Ties and Director Toth?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a bit of a general comment, and we've gotten some emails from impassioned adults and athletes over the last few days, and I want to acknowledge that, and that they do want to pursue their sport, and I absolutely appreciate that. And at the same time, I think we do have to look out for the community and the greater use of of our tax dollars that are responsibly spent. And to be honest, in this climate here, skating itself is a luxury, even in the wintertime. And in the summertime, nobody was able to skate if it wasn't for technology. So, and technology costs money. So I'm okay with unfortunately shutting things down as of April.
Thank you. Director Toth?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I 100% agree with Director Ties. I know that Director Pratt has mentioned there are ice sports heavy communities in Alberta that, even shut down in March and April. So that is what it is. I did have one question for staff, which was to follow through with regards to where we're at. This is presented for information only at this time. If something comes through, tournaments are allowed, ice demand increases, that change in position from not offering to spring ice to offering spring ice is something that is able to happen at the staff level without coming back to board. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question. I really do appreciate that, because staff is certainly open to doing what we can. I know that our crew has gone out and has asked multiple times if there's any additional ice, and will continue to do so. There will be a point in time of which we need to make a decision based on staffing schedules and also our spring non-ice user groups, the ability for them to plan as well. So there will be a sort of a cutoff, but if there is a change, staff does have the ability through that same policy and board resolution to make a change. And as Manager Don said, if there's a couple of weeks that we can extend by because the need and the revenue is there, then we'll do our best to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about report number 5 on Sunshine Coast Arena Spring Ice? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 6, Annex E, pages 43 and 44, 2022 Advisory Planning Commission appointments. And over to our corporate officer.
Thank you, Chair. This report is coming forward to acknowledge deferral of the annual Advisory Planning Commission recruitment process, where we would typically be appointing new members each January. The pause on recruitment for new members this year is coming forward in recognition of the upcoming planning process improvements project that will be occurring over this year, and as a result may provide an opportunity to review how those process changes will interface with SCRD's advisory planning commissions.
Thank you. Directors, questions, comments? Director Hiltz?
Yeah, quick question. The number of 6 minimum, if that so happens to drop, we can still appoint as necessary to bring up the numbers. I'm just, like the West House Sound is at 6 right now. We maintain quorum, but if for some reason it dropped from 6, what would be the process that we would go to while we're not appointing? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. So with direction from the board, we would initiate a recruitment process. In that instance, we could put an ad out. Would you like to know the status of the various APCs at the moment?
Yes, please.
So I did a check-in, and as of today, we're all operating with sufficient numbers. Area B APC is right at the threshold of 6, as is Area F, and Area D still has 7 members, but is getting close to that threshold as well. As long as we don't receive any further resignations, they can continue to operate as is with the current members in place.
Thank you. And I think Director McMahon was looking for some information about format for meetings. Whether they have to be in person or if we can do them electronically, and how we deal with that.
Thank you for the question. So we have arranged to accommodate a hybrid form of the meeting, if you will. So the APCs are able to meet electronically via Zoom. And if we do have members of the public that request attendance in person, we will provide a physical location for the public to attend and watch the meeting if they are unable to access the technology to join and listen in on the meeting.
Thank you. Director Pratt.
Thank you. At my APC meeting on Tuesday night, they expressed an extreme amount of gratitude for being able to meet electronically and for the board supporting that. And I know that until things settle out, they would like to continue that. The last APC in November was challenging with doing it as a hybrid over the phone and in person, as a number of the members were not confident in attending in person. So the electronic for our area is greatly appreciated at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Director McMahon.
Yes, I pretty much echo that. You know, we had a few hiccups. We had some difficulty getting somebody out of the gallery into the panel. But you know, we're all learning Zoom, and the ability to screen share is a real benefit to these Zoom meetings. So we had an excellent meeting last night. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so there are some recommendations on page 43 in our package. Director Hiltz?
Yeah, I wanted to check in on that electronic participation, as we've heard that we're migrating to Microsoft Teams, and so would the intent would still be Zoom for the advisories, or would that be a transition as well?
I think at present it's our intention to continue, but we also have a proposal for meeting management software that could be a requirement that we go with, but we're also going to put out a request for proposals just to see what other options are there. But we'll ensure we still have the ability to meet electronically.
Thank you. All right, again, back to Director Hiltz.
I'll move the recommendations on page 43.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to next item on our agenda is revised 2022 Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities, or AVIC, resolutions, pages 45 through 46, Annex F, Corporate Officer.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is the board's final opportunity to approve resolutions to be submitted for consideration at the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Conference. The deadline to submit is tomorrow at noon, and in consultation with Directors McMahon, Toth, and Pratt, the following two revised resolutions have been brought forward for the board's consideration.
Thank you. I'd like to express our acknowledgement to the three directors. Excellent work. Are there any, is there any input from the other directors who weren't in that committee? Director Hiltz.
Looks great. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so there's a recommendation on page 45. Would someone like to make a recommendation? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 7A, Office of the CAO Monthly Report.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to provide a few thoughts on the last month, certainly on behalf of the Office of the CAO. First of all, I'd really like to share my appreciation to everyone here at the Sunshine Coast Regional District for keeping things afloat over the holidays and dealing continually with the challenges that COVID continues to throw our way. I want to also especially thank our recreation staff, who once again pivoted to make sure that we were in position to get our facilities open with the changes in orders last week. I see Graham's no longer with us on the call, but I was amazed to see that his hair hasn't gone prematurely gray. It's good to see him still soldiering on in difficult circumstances. In terms of budget, we hosted a number of information sessions over the past month as part of SCRD's 2022 budget. While the participation in the sessions might not have been at the numbers we would have liked to have seen, those who did attend asked great questions, which were dealt with excellently by CFO Tina Perot, directors, and our senior leadership team. I do want to thank our finance team for all their work as we look ahead to budget adoption on February 24th. All of the sessions and presentations that were completed can be viewed on the budget page at letstalk.scrd.ca/budget. So I wanted to get a bit of a shout out there. Anyone that didn't see them and would like to see them, please feel free to go online and have a look. I'd especially like to extend my thanks to Tina Perot, who did a wonderful job at the presentations, and thank you so much for that, Tina. For Church Road, earlier this month, the board approved the contract for construction of the Church Road well. This project's been a long time in the making, and there are many staff who've been involved in making this project a reality. For GM Remco Rosenboom and your whole team, thank you so much. We're hoping to have this well online by September, and we're working on a public presentation opening for the Church Road well project that we hope will occur within the next few weeks. Planning for public hearings. Our planning department's put a lot of work these last few weeks onto our public hearing process, all of which came to fruition recently with a very successful hearing for an area of development in Roberts Creek. While planning leads the charge on these hearings, and we did have an opportunity to thank many members of the planning staff for the work that they did on this, a lot of other staff do work in the background on this as well, and I wanted to recognize our Deputy Corporate Officer, Jennifer Hill, who provided a ton of support to the public hearing process improvements before the holidays, all of while doing both her Deputy Corporate Officer role and backfilling the missing executive assistant role as well. She's been incredibly busy, and her efforts are greatly appreciated. The other shout out I wanted to give out, thinking of the last month, was our communications manager, Aiden Buckley. I don't see Aiden here, so that he has no proof that this thank you ever occurred. Aiden worked through his entire holiday on the various communications and updates on the many Sunshine Coast Regional District service changes and interruptions, all through his own vacation. He also did a really good job of doing moderation and for the budget sessions and helping out with the budget sessions themselves. So when I think of the last month, those are just a few of the people that I think, and some of the departments and some of the interesting things that are worth sharing and mentioning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Directors, any questions for our CAO? No questions. All right. We will move on to the next item in our agenda. This is communications, and I know this person. So the District of Sechelt is looking at putting in a grant application to actually implement the recommendations that came out of the Poverty Reduction Action Plan. So the Poverty Reduction Action Plan, the District of Sechelt took the lead on that. We contracted to the Resource Center, and they put together that report. I think you've all seen that report. At that time, there was no funding available to do the implementation. This has recently come out, short turnaround. Deadline for applications is February 11th. So the application is being finalized right now, and we are looking again at doing a regional application. So in order to do that, we need a recommendation from each of the local governments that are willing to basically say the District of Sechelt will manage it on the other government's behalf. So this letter is requesting a recommendation from the board as outlined, and I'd look to the board if they have any questions or comments, and if not, then I'd look for a recommendation. No questions or comments? Would someone like to make a recommendation? Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Chair. I'll make a recommendation that the SCRD clearly indicate support for the District of Sechelt to receive and manage the grant funding on their behalf.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded? All right. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 8. The recommendation is that the resignation of Nora Jessam from the Sunshine Coast Regional District Board of Variance be received. Would someone like to move and second the recommendation? Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. And then item number 9. These are resignations from the Area B Half Moon Bay Advisory Planning Commission. Director Pratt.
I will move that the resignations of Frank Belfry, Jim Noon, and Bruce Thorpe be received, please.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. And item number 10, Director Hiltz.
Sure, I'll move that the resignation of Al Hyland from Area F West Howe Sound Advisory Planning Commission be received.
And is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to bylaws.
Chair, just a quick
Yes.
question, if I may.
Yes, Director Toth?
Regarding number 8, not knowing much about the Board of Variance, do we have enough members for it for the next time it meets? Do we need to recruit people? What's next for the Board of Variance? Thank you.
Corporate Officer?
Thank you, Chair. So we do have an ad out and a recruitment is underway. We currently do, the Board of Variance consists of 3 members and we need 2 members for quorum, which we currently have. So we can still conduct meetings as long as those 2 members hang in. And in the meantime, we are working to find a new volunteer who is willing to step up and sit in on the Board of Variance.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 11. This is the Church Road Whalefield Project Temporary Borrowing Bylaw. And would staff like to speak to this one? Tina, did you want to speak to, just introduce this? Why are we doing this?
Yeah, so today at the Corporate and Administrative Services Committee, there was a request as a result of the director's travel and constituency expense, recognizing that over the last couple of years as a result of COVID, there hasn't been a lot of travel.
Tina, we're not there yet. We're on the Church Road Whalefield Project Temporary Borrowing Bylaw.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
This one here is as a result of the January 13th meeting, where we increased the borrowing, and with anticipated construction beginning, we're already starting, hopefully, we will be expending funds. And so we need the internal borrowing to be able to fund the cash expenses until we can do the security issuing when the project is complete. So this particular bylaw is very similar, and we haven't done one in some time. So it's similar to our revenue anticipation bylaw, where we don't receive our tax funds until August for operations. So this is similar to that, where we have a timing difference for cash. And so we don't have internal funds to be able to fund, especially this amount of funding.
Thank you. Before we go to the actual bylaw and the readings, are there any questions by any directors? All right, so we'll move to the actual bylaw. This is Annex G, pages 47 through 48. We're looking for first, second, third reading and adoption. It is a weighted vote. All directors, A2, B2, D2, E2, F2, C-Shelt 6, Gibson's 3, and SIGD 1. So I'd look for a first reading for Sunshine Coast Regional District Bylaw number 734, a bylaw to authorize the temporary borrowing of $9 million pending the sale of debentures. Moved by Director Toth. Is there a seconder? Seconded. All those in favor? First reading. Then Sunshine Coast Regional District Bylaw number 734, a bylaw to authorize the temporary borrowing of $9 million pending the sale of debentures. I'd look for someone to move second reading. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Then Sunshine Coast Regional District Bylaw number 734, a bylaw to authorize the temporary borrowing of $9 million pending the sale of debentures. And someone to move third reading. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And then Sunshine Coast Regional District Bylaw number 734, a bylaw to authorize the temporary borrowing of $9 million pending the sale of debentures. And someone to move adoption. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. All right, let's go build a well. Let's move on to director reports. So we're going to go order as on my screen. We'll start with Director Beamish, McMahon, Hiltz, Toth, Pratt, and Lee. Oh, dropped over Ties and then Lee. All right, so Director Beamish, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. A couple things. We held our first Police Transition Committee meeting last week, and we have our second meeting scheduled for the 9th of February, which is the same day as the census comes out, the day when we will know if we are over 5,000 population. So we'll either be having our second to last meeting or the second of many meetings. So we'll see. The current committee consists of Ed Hill, Brad Zellis, and Wayne Rowe, myself, and Stafford Lumley, Councillor Lumley. And we have, since that meeting, also appointed another member, Nancy Hughes, to that committee. So we are advertising currently for one additional member, a member of the public. We wanted to have some balance on there. You recognize some of the names there have RCMP experience. We want to have some people who just straight representing community. We also have advertised this week in the paper for the next 2 weeks, opportunities for artists to put submissions forward for our Art Walk project. And that's the Thrive grant of $50,000 we received. We have published a map of potential sites. And we're hoping that artists, the expectation is that artists will look at sites and look at what they would design, propose for a specific site in the community. And there will be opportunities also for the representatives from Squamish Nation to put forward proposals. So we're looking forward to that. Intention is that that project will be completed in September. One other thing I'd like to bring attention to, and I sent this email out to a few people, and this has to do with the Watershed Security Strategy and Fund. This has just been announced this week. Public consultation process is started on this. The email I sent out has 3 hot buttons in it. First one is for the announcement by the Minister of Environment and Climate Change Strategy, George Heyman. Well worth listening to about the first 4 minutes of this. Worth listening to the whole thing, but we are actually going to play the first 4 minutes on our council meeting this week. It explains why this is being looked at and the priority is being given. And I was very pleased to see that he references, in addition to freshwater lakes and streams, he references aquifers as a priority and something we need to look at. Opportunity here is going to be to look to apply for funding. And so we have a look at this. There's a discussion paper also being issued, and there's a press release as well, so that I really appreciate if people move this forward. I am part of the Watershed, the coalition on this, so we will be trying to put forward opportunities for public awareness. We have actually added this to our website, to our Watershed portion of our website, and encourage people to look at it and provide comment to the process. So that lots going on, and we really hope that this will be some way that we can drive forward some changes and some security and protection of the watershed areas. And I'm going to say particularly above the town of Gibson's, because that is obviously my area of concern, but every area of the Sunshine Coast, the watersheds need to be acknowledged and protected. So we need to work on that. So I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Director McMahon.
Right. I don't have a long report today. Indeed, the province has opened a public consultation on watersheds, and I think all of us should be sharing the link. I discern a certain amount of cynicism out in resident land, but what the heck, we need to get our voices heard. I've been following up some on where tiny homes sit in terms of regulation and what other regional districts are doing. RDN has just passed a resolution that we will be seeing at AVICC, asking the province to update regulations around tiny homes. Last night, I got into a really good discussion with my APC about what is an APC for and what is the value of it. And really, really interesting. I'm looking forward to the conversation that will be coming up. But basically what they said is that we bring a grassroots voice to the SCRD's processes. And I thought that was an interesting observation. Finally, good news. It looks like I will be running my highly opinionated introduction to regional districts again as a Zoom course. If all goes well, I expect it will be Sunday afternoons, 2-hour sessions on February 27th, March 6th, 13th, and 20th. So when I get confirmation of that, expect to hear from me, and I will be soliciting again for guest speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, the West Howe Sound Advisory Planning Commission met on Tuesday, and it was a Zoom meeting, but it was a Zoom meeting without video. So we had audio and screen sharing, but we couldn't quite get the video to work, but it's still, everyone managed, and even with just audio, it was still a successful meeting, even without video. So you can do Zoom without video, so it does work. And the Hall and Lands Committee met on January 19th at the town of Gibsons. So that process is continuing. And today is the last day of the Crown referral for a license of occupation for public comment at the New Brighton ramp, which is adjacent to the New Brighton dock. So if anyone hasn't been able to put in their comments, it's open till today. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I go, I think Zoom without video used to be called a conference call, but I'm not quite sure. We had at council, we had the renewal of our downtown business improvement area bylaw get adopted. There was that counter petition process that needed to go through for that. And that was, the petition was not successful, which means the bylaw could be adopted. And that funds the Seashell Downtown Business Association for the next 4 years with a modest cost of living increase. We finally got our MOTI permit for construction of improvements along Wharf Avenue through downtown. So that project is finally going to be going ahead. We were starting to get itchy, antsy, whatever. The mayor was talking about who we needed to talk to rattle some cages to get that permit to come through, because it's intended that project would be wrapped up before the start of tourist season, so that we're not impacting the traffic through downtown through the summertime. So, and that one is 100% grant funded, which is fantastic. And we had the Trail Bay Waterfront Boulevard project come back again at council last week, and we had 6 of us there, and we had 2 motions that were 3-3. So they were both defeated. So nothing's moving forward. Nothing's going anywhere with the boulevard for the time being. And I think that's really all I have to report this week. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Hiltz, question.
Just a comment on the Zoom. I would call this an enhanced conference call, because you could still raise your electronic hand and it had some names, and we got squares. So it was less disorientating than like a regular conference call. So I'd call it an enhanced conference call, but it was still quite effective. So thanks.
Thank you. Director Ties, then Lee, and then Pratt.
Thank you, Chair. I attended the Sunshine Coast Youth Services Action Advisory Council. Is that what it is? Something like that. Long acronym. Not much to report there, apart from that several of the organizations involved in it are still short-staffed. There seems to be a difficulty getting mental health support for youth. The opioid crisis is not getting better, and there is naloxone training happening in several locations. Food continues to be an issue, especially in high schools. There's the backpack program in the elementary schools, but once you get to high school, of course, you don't want to be seen getting handed food and that sort of thing. So there is a cafe card program at Elphinstone. So if there is, so that's a pretty low profile way of going about it. So that works pretty well, but there's nothing at chat at this point. I wanted to remind everybody that tonight is the public information meeting for 1220 Lockyer. I'm certainly going to attend, because I think there's a few questions that we would like answered as well. So that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Lee, then Director Pratt, and then Director Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and keep this short. The chamber built a ramp at the reading room up in the ranger station, and it was a great ramp, except that you hit your head on the overhang if you were over 5'10". But thanks to our parks department, they've fixed the porch roof so that a taller person can walk in. Yeah, did a great job. It's all done, and it's been it was really appreciated by the not-for-profits that were putting their time into it, and even more so by the patrons. We've got several thank you notes for the ramp. It's so much easier than stairs to use for the advanced age residents, as well as the people that need assistance. Had several meetings with the people concerned about the Egmonton District Volunteer Fire Department. Basically, it's going to be some ongoing meetings till we get it settled on how we handle the capital part of the program, because they're going to need a new truck in a few years, and it's pretty heavy financial burden on them. And the other thing is they keep wondering about how to get more awareness of the fire department, what their funding are, what they're doing, what their future is. And it's something that I think we all are kind of wondering how we do that. I know we really like the way that Gibson's in district with the fire commission seems like a pretty good model. And the self-supporting ones have a pretty good model too, because they have all those directors that are the improvement district directors that are very aware. I don't know what we would do for the other three so that we could make our citizens more aware in more depth. Maybe perhaps a different report, more like our partners give us with budgets and operations and all that kind of thing. But it's something that I keep thinking about, so just wanted to mention it. And lastly, I attended Pender Harbour and Area Chamber of Commerce AGM, and they had a keynote speaker, Jack Barr. He's chair of the Sunshine Coast Tourism. He's a great speaker. It was great just to sit and listen to him. He's very dedicated to the Sunshine Coast. And he made it apparent that the hotel tax has made a big difference for them here on the coast. And in fact, there was a 14% increase in room rentals over the next best year, which was 2019. And so it's just went up steady since the hotel tax come in. And they've been able to advertise. And I had to chuckle. He says, you invite people and then put roadblocks so they can't get here. He's talking about the ferry. He says, but they're still that determined that they're coming. So he suggested an hourly ferry service might be a good idea. I tend to agree with him. Anyways, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Pratt, and then Director Paul.
Thank you. I would like to say that there is a breakfast and lunch program at Pender Harbour Secondary too. So that they do manage to do that, and I don't think that gets heard about a lot down the Seashelt Gibson side. But they've got a pretty good program going on there. Just to follow up on what Director Ties had to say with the Youth Action Committee, Zoom without pictures. It's almost like electronic tic-tac-toe. So, anyways, it's been a pretty quiet couple of weeks, other than the budget information sessions, which I'm very happy to have watched all of them, and great job to staff and to directors on all of on being prepared and having it all through, and thanks, of course, always to our finance and our communications team, and of course the technology support that happens in the background for all of that. And my APC was earlier this week on Tuesday night. We had a good conversation, and as we heard earlier in this meeting, we're right at our threshold right now. So hopefully we'll have some new members show up. Otherwise, something that's happening outside of our area that I just want to touch on. There's a meeting happening today up in Catet, and part of the meeting is to censure one of their directors, and it's a serious issue, and I wanted to just flag it for anybody who hasn't heard about it yet. It's I think it's something to definitely take a look at. It's being in elected office. It's we have a tough line that we walk, and I from my way of thinking, I can't tell you how appreciative I am for the level of collaboration and communication that we have amongst elected here on our part of the Sunshine Coast, our level of respect for one another, the way we speak with one another, the way we help one another, the way we speak to one another, and the way we support. And we don't let things get to a point where it becomes witch hunts, and I'm not using that word lightly, because I'm frankly appalled at about a lot of the things that are being said up there, and we see it across. We see a lot of negative things being said, and about elected people, about politicians. We hear about some genuine activity that is happening that does worry us and is worrisome. However, it is this is something I really think that it's important to take a look at if you haven't seen it already. It is a meeting that is happening later on today. I think at 7 o'clock. I'm not quite sure. Director Toth may know.
30.
Pardon me?
It's at 6:30 tonight. I've actually got the agenda page open right now.
Okay. And just a note for IT, there might be something that needs to happen there with one of these attendees in the list. I don't know if you want to pause the meeting, Chair, or not, but it looks like we're just getting some spam here. In the chat.
Yeah, I'm taking care of it. Thank you.
Anyways, regardless, it's just something I really think it's important to for everybody to know. And Director Toth has just shared the link there. So it's just something that it concerns me. And at the same time, I just want to again just say how incredibly grateful and appreciative I am for our team down here on this end of the Sunshine Coast, and how respectful we are of one another, whether we agree or not. So so thank you, everyone. I really appreciate that. Respectful not only of each other, but also of staff, and also staff of us. So, and we've worked really, really hard over this term to make sure that we have this kind of work environment. So that's my little rant of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Pratt. I've been watching that as well. I appreciate your comments around our working relationship. I tell you, I've been on elected boards for a number of years, and I have to say that the board of the regional district and the other elected officials on the Sunshine Coast, it's the best I've been with. And staff also comment on that. So I think we're setting an example for our staff as well. And we're seeing a lot more collaboration among our staff because we're collaborating. So thank you for mentioning that. Director Paul.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about my horrible froggy voice. It's been a tough beginning of January here, and just returning back to work. This is my first full week, and it's been a doozy. So we started off with 2 evening community engagements we've had already this week. One on Monday for our nation's capital planning. Last night was, let me think. Go back to my notes. Last night was our, we had another one. Our foundation agreement review with our nation members. Sorry. It escaped my head and my thoughts for a moment. So those were 2 long days, dragged out with a couple extra long meetings till about 8-ish, Monday and last night. I've attended a strategic cannabis session presented and hosted by the BC Aboriginal First Nations organization. So that was a good session in regards to nations building and or seeking equality throughout the province for revenue sharing and or growing and or production. So other than that, yeah, we've had our weekly Sanko Corporation meeting on Tuesday, another long day. So just back in the saddle, and here I am with you lovely folks. So thank you for having me back.
Thank you, and get well. We like having you at our table. All right, I have a few things to add. On Wednesday night this past week, we had the public hearing for the TELUS Living proposal for Inlet Avenue and downtown Sechelt. They are proposing a 6-story building with up to 60 rental units. Those would be market rent. What else have I got here? Vancouver Coastal Health. The Vancouver Coastal Health is still doing the bi-weekly COVID-19 meetings. We had one this past Friday. One of the things that they mentioned is that they are moving from pandemic to endemic. That means that we will start seeing different things happening at the hospital and how the COVID is handled in the community. One that many people are really concerned about, but is part of the process, is that when you get sick, you don't automatically get tested. So we don't know when we're getting sick now if we have COVID or not. Another piece that came in early on in the pandemic protocols was that if somebody presented at the hospital here with COVID-19, they were immediately shipped out. They were immediately airlifted out to Lower Mainland. That's no longer happening anymore. They are in the hospital here. In fact, if you go into the hospital, you may find that if you're in a bed, you might have somebody who has COVID in the bed beside you. So they're no longer COVID wards. That's a transition that's happening. So for all of us in the community, it's going to be a mindset shift that we're going to have to embrace at some point. So it's not that this is a short-term thing that we're dealing with. We're going to be dealing with COVID forever, or for many, many, many years is what they're saying. What does that look like? That's the endemic component. One of the questions that was asked, which was interesting, was who officially declares a pandemic over? And that's the same as who declared the pandemic, and that would be the World Health Organization. So while we may, in Canada, get to a place where we no longer consider it a pandemic, it will be up to the World Health Organization to look at the world to be able to declare it over. And one other piece somebody asked if you've just had COVID or you've just been sick, when should you get your booster? And they suggested you wait 4 weeks to get your booster. And the reason is if you have COVID or have some kind of illness, your body has had an immune reaction to that. So you want to let your body recover and then get the booster so that you again have an immune reaction, right? So that you would actually respond to the it's basically better for your body because you have more times to respond to it, and so you'll have a stronger immune response. ECE, early childhood education. This has been something that we've been working on since September of last year with started with our minister meeting at UBCM, and then we had a meeting with ASET, which is Adult Skills, something, employment training or something like that it's called. We had a meeting with that in Capilano University. Had another meeting this past week with Capilano University. One of the things we did prior to that was reach out to find out how many ECEs, or early childhood education staff, are needed on the Sunshine Coast. And so we put a list together, and we're looking at how do we address that? And when do we need to have them in place? So the plan right now is to potentially have an in-person course at CapU this fall, a full 10-month program, 8 to 10-month program, to have people completely trained up for employment starting September of next year. There are a number of programs right now that already need staff, including Mamimon at the Sechelt Nation. But District of Sechelt applied for a grant for a daycare. We would look for 6 full-time positions. If it's part-time, maybe up to 10. YMCA is running West Sechelt. They need 7. The YMCA at the Early Childhood Center, or Early Years Center down in downtown Sechelt, 10 ECEs. They're also doing a pre-K pilot. This is a school district, 3 ECEs. Right, so we have enough for a course. So what the CapU is going to look at doing is they're reaching out to those who have indicated in the past potentially they're interested, or those who started the course and did not complete, to find out what some of those barriers are. So we can look at addressing those barriers, get those seats filled, so we actually have childcare spaces for people in our community. It is a real detriment to economic development and to the well-being of families here on the Sunshine Coast. So we need to look at addressing that. What else have I got? I took part in a panel Tuesday night. It was online, obviously. Welcoming Committees Program, Sea to Sky, looking at building inclusive communities. We were looking at diversity and equity. And the panel was diverse. As I said, on each of the panels, is 4 weeks. On each of the panels, there is an elected official, but then they have members of the community who may be new immigrants or have lived here for 3 or 4 years. And we were given some questions to answer. And it was really interesting to see some of the answers and some of the impacts that people have been experiencing. These are an hour and a half long sessions. Starts out with us each answering these questions, and then going on to answer questions from the gallery. I've actually asked some of the presenters to provide me with some of their answers, because there were some tips, there were some impacts that I think are very much worth sharing with the community. So I'll be putting something together and setting that out. Community Action Team received funding again for this coming year. We haven't received the final documents, but we received funding. What's interesting about that program is it's really expanding, and we're starting to get cross-representation from a lot of organizations and groups that are dealing with the opioid crisis here on the Sunshine Coast. It was presented that there's potentially an additional $75,000 to do some additional training in the community. So we're going to be looking at how we could take advantage of that. Lots of work happening there. The opioid crisis is an issue on the Sunshine Coast. There is some work being done to potentially expand the OPS, the Overdose Prevention Site in Sechelt. So watch for more information coming out on that. And then one final thing I'll mention, a couple other things I'll mention this one, sod turning, Hackett Park for the stage, February 4th. I believe it's taking place at noon on February 4th. And there'll be a stage put in at the bottom of Hackett Park. We got a grant for this, and this will then allow for us to hold concerts and things in the park. If you've gone by there lately, you've seen that our staff have actually built a little amphitheater in the park with some lock blocks. So we'll see what we can come up with for happening in Sechelt when that goes on. Other things going on here. I'm just going to mention a couple of things. Director Toth mentioned Wharf Avenue. Active Transportation Network. So a couple of months back, we announced that we received a $3.2 million grant for active transportation. The kickoff meeting was took place recently here. The end of January, we should have the, actually end of January, yes, pre-design meeting, that's already happened. And that's going to move forward. That will put in a road with biking and walking trails from Kinnickinnick School over to Mason Road and down to the highway. One of the things that the West Sechelt Community Association has been asking for many years is sidewalks and trails beside, or paths beside the school. They want to make sure that the students are safe. So this will be going in there. Operations Center on track for start of construction in the spring of 2022. We are looking at installing a washroom, a vandal-resistant washroom at Snicket Park. We're coordinating with the SCRD, BC Hydro, Moti, and Archaeological Services. It's out for request for quotations right now, and we're anticipating that the contract will be let by the end of this month. The other thing that we're looking at putting in is a sanitary pump station. The design is out for RFQ as well. That would go up on Dusty Road by the Public Works Building. I think that's all I've got. All right, let me go back to my agenda. Now we move on to new business, and this is to our CFO, the report on the operational surplus.
Thank you. Let's try this again. So earlier today at the Corporate and Administrative Services Committee, as part of the Director's Travel and Constituency Expense Report, it was requested that staff review the 2021 surplus for general government in recognition that a lot of travel has not occurred through COVID. During the break, staff did have a preliminary review and understanding that, again, it's a little uncustomary for us to not provide some of this information with a supplementary report. So this is just for consideration. And so we also recognize that for several other functions, there is still some year-end work that needs to be done. However, it does appear that the general government service will be having a significant year-end surplus for 2021, and the request at Corporate and Administrative Services was whether or not that could be used to offset taxation for 2022. So as part of the financial sustainability policy, surpluses are not generally used to reduce taxation as they create some variability. And as you recall, for 2020, we did use operational surpluses to offset, and we had a significant spike in 2021. This may have the same effect if we do that as we look to normalize the budget for next year. There have been some other reviews done through the 2022 budget as we look to adopt the financial plan. And there was a decrease, or we're looking to do a decrease of approximately $25,000 already, because our property in lieu of taxes from utilities and such has increased over the prior year. So we'll be able to reduce that by $25,000. So in addition to that, I think it would be conservative to be able to reduce and take approximately $50,000 to $75,000 of the 2021 surplus out of general government to offset the 2022 taxation. There is a very, I think, respectable amount of money in the operating reserve currently. There are some identified needs. So we did review with staff as to some of the ongoing projects that they have and some unknowns that those funds could be used towards. So again, towards whether or not we have plans for our operational reserve. So indirectly, we do. It's not completely formalized, but we know there's a lot of items within our general government. So our Convergent Collaboration project that may have some ongoing expenses. We also have our corporate website that's going to be developed this year. We don't know what the sustainment of that is going to be. So there is some potential needs for those operating reserves. So essentially, what the suggestion is here, if the board would be amenable to is to use either $50,000 or $75,000 of the 2021 surplus for general government function 110 to reduce 2022 taxation.
Thank you. Function 110, you said?
Yes, that's general government, which all participants participate in that. And again, just to remind that for 2023, taxation, if it's normalized, would have potentially a little spike.
All right, directors, what would you like to do? First of all, any questions, comments, and then direction? Director McMahon.
I'm aware that I have to run out here in a minute to make an appointment, but we've had a lot of last minute increases this year, and we're facing, you know, really steep costs for utilities, for water and garbage particularly. So I would favor using this surplus to reduce taxation, but I'm interested to hear from others. Thank you.
Director Beamish and then Director Toth.
Yeah, I actually concur. I think this is not a year that we should, this is a year we should be saving money or cutting money back in taxation, so that there are many, as I mentioned before, people and businesses suffering, and the more we can reduce the impact on them, I appreciate that. I would actually move to use $75,000 from surplus for that purpose.
And that's been seconded. Thank you. Director Toth, comments?
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad Director Beamish moved it because I was going to move it otherwise. Yeah, we do have a number of sort of one-time little costs that have been added on and tacked on. And I think, you know, we've underspent in constituency expense and things like that. So it's not hard to find that lump of money to reduce taxation. So totally thrilled with this option being presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Paul, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I just had a concern for the comment in regards to next year's tax base would be significantly increased. So do you know any guesstimates in regards to for the preparations for next year maybe?
So without doing an extensive analysis quite yet, we kind of did this within the last hour before the board meeting. So no, I appreciate the request. From statistically right now, approximately about $240,000 of property taxation is a 1% overall increase. So this is, you know, doesn't result in a 1% tax increase, but because all participants, it would have impacts most certainly to the member municipalities as well as how much we requisition. So again, to some of those tax base. So again, we are looking at what those particular costs are included in the general government services and what they are. So I think that work still needs to be done. Like I said, we already identified that we've been able to increase the other sources of revenue to reduce the property taxation burden again for 2022. So that'll carry on until 2023. So we may find some other opportunities. So
thank you. Any other questions or comments? So we have a recommendation on the floor that the 2022 general government function 110 be reduced by $75,000. All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, staff.
All right, we have a motion on the floor here, or a motion to be made to move in camera under section 91A KM and 2B of the community charter. Would someone like to move that recommendation? Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. All right, we have somebody in our gallery. Do you have any questions?
Hello, Donna.
If you'd like to unmute yourself, if you have any questions.
Hi, I'm here.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good, I'm unmuted. Yes, I do have a question, and I've been thinking about it for quite a while. I'm wondering, how are the changes made to development permits? Do they differ according to area or other aspects of the land to be developed? Is it all according to like what you might call rules, or can the developer negotiate, and if so, with whom? And the reason I'm asking these questions is because I have been hearing from different people who, you know, they're paying attention, and they're smart people, and they're wondering about what kind of a difference that the climate change and some of the flooding and stuff that's going on, how much of that might be taken care of by overhauling our development permits in their entirety in relation to climate change, because we have Moti activity or inactivity, whatever you want to call it. And so I'm just curious about whether there's a kind of a risk management thing that goes on. Just because I don't know if our development permits have just stayed the same. I don't know enough about it to really ask a good question, but that's as close as I can come. Thanks.
Thank you. Staff, do you want to jump in on some of that? Is the question clear? GM Hall.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Donna, for the question. Yes, development permits are set out as part of our official community plan bylaws. And if you're able to take a look at scrd.ca/planning, you can find the documents that you can find the official community plans there that list out the specific development permit areas, which do include areas subject to flooding. Perhaps of particular interest is that in the next month or so, staff will have an update report on the climate action projects that are underway with the support of the board. And we will be speaking about the upcoming community dialogues that will be occurring around climate adaptation. And so that's an opportunity to talk about our current development guidelines and what we might look at in the future, and input from the community will be welcomed in that process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will tell those people that I've heard from that it looks like there's going to be some action taken on this, and they'll get a chance to have their say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna. All right, I'm going to remove you from the meeting because we're going to then close it and go in camera.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. So IT, do we have, first of all, staff, do we have everybody here that we need to have here before we lock the meeting? We have everybody in, thank you. IT, would you like to lock the meeting, please?
Yes.
Thank you. We're back. So I'd look for a motion to adjourn the, what meeting are we in? The board meeting, the SCRD board meeting. Moved, seconded, all in favor. Thank you. All right, thank you all. Great day. Thank you for your contribution. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Nice to see you all again.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Done.